Well, HR has long been seen as the conscience of the organization, but today the question is far more uncomfortable. Is HR actually in control, or is it still playing catch up? In an era defined by constant transformation, boardroom politics, and performance pressure, HR is no longer just about people, it's about power. The ability to influence decisions, challenge leadership, and shape the future of work from the front seat and not just the sidelines. That's exactly what we're going to be exploring today in this episode of BW People HR Voices Season 4. And joining us for this conversation is someone who has been at the heart of high-stakes environment across industries, Mr. Amitesh Osta, the Chief Human Resource Officer at MRG Group. With over 17 years of experience across organizations like AB InBev, Johnson & Johnson, and Hindustan Lever, Mr. Amitesh has led complex transformations, mergers, and cultural shifts, making him uniquely placed to talk about what it really takes for HR to move from a support function to power center. Well, welcome, Mr. Amitesh, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this conversation.
Before we delve into the more serious conversation, an opening question for you, Mr. Amitesh. If HR was to run the company solely for a year, no filters, no pressures, no compromises, what's the first uncomfortable decision you would take?
I think you have opened up this conversation with a difficult one, but definitely I would like to answer this one. If I have to take a decision to start an organization and without no compromises and no filter, definitely I would like to remove first those managers who are brilliant at their job, but they are very much toxic to their people, their team, right? Because these are the people who will chase the number, right? And after chasing the number, once they achieve the number, but because of even after achieving the number, there are a number of people who will leave the organization. The people who leave the organization, it's a footprint that organization has to fill back at its own in its own period of time, right? The people who are burned out, like, and it also impacts your employer reputation. Though you are achieving your number every day in and day out, but the kind of employer reputation that these kind of people or these kind of managers they build outside, where you will not find a good talent which will come back to your organization. So the first no filters and no compromise decision that I'm going to take is to remove the high performing managers who are not high, performing to their teams.
Very, very interesting take on this. We will come back to the culture part that you mentioned later in the conversation, but you also spoke about numbers in business. My next question is on that. Often what HR calls strategy is overshadowed by the business part of the company, profits and how the company is leading in the industry, right? Now, what does it actually take for an HR to become a true power center? And when we talk about boardroom conversations, is the CFO, the CEO, and the sales and the finance part of the organization more relevant, or does CHRO also lead the conversation there? And is it overshadowed by business decisions at all?
We have watched HR evolving over a period of time, right? If I still recall, it was known as a personal department where more of a paperwork used to happen. Then we became the support function, right? Then HR came on table in terms of support function, and they started calling themselves, we started calling ourselves as HR business partners. And then slowly from HR business partner, we have moved to the more of a strategic intent into the HR, right? But if you talk about from business partner that sat onto the table to the strategic partner that helped shape direction, each evolution was necessary into HR. Mm-hmm. I will not say it was not, and each one has earned its own credibility. But I believe that we are standing on the edge of something entirely new, something that none of those titles have ever earned or captures anymore into these times. The boardroom operates only in one language. It's numbers, it's revenue, it's EBITDA, it's market share, return on investment. These are the terms that boardroom is going to use, or still it is there in the boardroom. But when HR walks into this room, they talk altogether a different language. We speak a different language, the language of engagement scores, the language of cultural surveys, the language of wellness initiatives, the language of value alignment. These things are very much important. I'm not saying that these things are not important. But if HR cannot translate them into financial impact,
Correct.
the boardroom will always see us as one of those teams that does the feel good factor, right?
Mhm.
And they are not the one who are going to make or take the decisions into the boardroom. They will always be in a shoe which is going to make you feel good. And that's why when you see all these stand up, I can say, comedies, it's always been said that HR is the one who actually makes, I can say, rangoli and all. So it becomes very much important for HR to become a part of a business, to speak the language of the business rather than maintaining their own silo.
Well, that's an old school thought. I do not agree with that at all. The Diwali thing that you said, I do hear it in stand-up comedies, but again, I think people need to be more informed about it. Now, what's the journey like for CHRO to CEO level? Do you think that's the future for for CEOs, CHROs to CEOs? What could be the journey like? What's the road ahead? Do you think the numbers have grown over the years? And what's your take on this?
Uh, I would not like to take names, but yeah, I have worked with CHRO who are now heading the business. And with all due respect, I would like to take the name of Miss Leena Nair, who was a CHRO of Unilever India. She was CHRO of Unilever Global, and right now she is heading the business of Chanel. Okay, so there is a major shift in past coming days, or in past few days, I will say. Uh, in past, we have seen there is a major shift where now HR is moving to more towards business. Like I was saying, there is a language which needs to be used into the boardrooms. That is where we have seen a major shift into past 7 to 8 years. I will not say a decade, because decade back it was almost into the same shape. But in past couple of years, in past 5 years, I have seen that HR is taking a leap and they are moving right from people agenda to business agenda. And that is, if you ask me, that is quite helpful, because people who have built their bases, their foundations on people, and now moving into business, the balance, the equilibrium is there, because they also keep the HR agenda, they also keep the people agenda at heart, but they also know that if you have to drive the business, we need to drive the numbers, we need to drive the revenue.
Right. Now, coming back to the culture part that you mentioned initially in your opening answer, well, all the companies, they claim they have strong cultures, right? But there are always bits, and if you get into the nitty-gritties of it, you will find cracks in the culture, right? Now, in your experience, where does the culture most often break down within a company, within a department? What is your view on that?
Look, culture remains the most important and most vital part for any organization. That is, if someone is saying that culture is not, then I will not agree to that. I believe it is not a pillar of any organization. If you see many of the HR folks or many of the people or business leader, they say that culture is an important pillar. I always feel that it is a foundation stone, right? Culture is the main foundation of the organization. It breaks down when it simply remains onto the paper. So most of the people who speak about culture, and I will not say a CHRO or anyone, but any of the business leader. I take CHROs also as a business leaders. When they talk about culture, they talk about the fancy things that has been put down on paper, or the fancy slide which they are going to showcase into campus interviews or to the people whom they are going to hire. It looks very good when leaders talk about it, but it becomes a big failure when you don't walk the talk, right? Culture is not what you declare, it's what you experience into the organization, right? Every organization has declared. Some organizations are having cultural policies, some companies or some organizations are having, I can say, credo. Some organizations are having long drawn cultural footprint or processes, right? But leadership plays an very, very vital role over here. They must understand that culture is not a statement. It is not an statement anymore. It's a pattern, right? And that pattern either is going to become more strong, or it's slowly going to get eroded out of your organization. So that is where it becomes very much important that the way we are going to drive, in our in one of the books I was reading, that you can wash your staircase always from the top, not from the bottom. So leadership plays a very important role when the cultural aspect comes to the organization. it is very much important that we do walk the talk and not only discuss about a culture which is on paper.
Very well said. I'm going to go to a very different part of the conversation now. We're hearing in news a lot of companies, there are culture issues coming up, compliance issues coming up, policy issues coming up. I'd not like to take names, but in your view, how can the redressal systems be integral? How can they be authentic? As a CHRO, what is your take on that? Because what if we'll talk about the POSH policy, or let's say harassment cases, workplace safety, women employees. How can redressal be taken very, very seriously and not just like just another policy or just another compliance for an organization from a CHRO POV?
Look, the investigation, you say inquiry, you say employee concerns, employee grievances. Yes, I will say that at this point in time, it's not only HR, the concerns or the grievances, it's not only part of the HR, it is part of the entire leadership team, right? And I would like to join this back to the culture of the organization, right? When you talk about POSH, when you talk about misconduct, when you talk about grievances of the employee, everything falls back to some of the basics of HR, that how strong processes and policies you have made it, right? What is your infrastructure, okay, which is in place, right? Even apart from that, if we talk about how this needs to be done, there should be a proper, I would like to take a step back and also would like to discuss that now we are having so many laws, the 4952 laws, which has been converted now into codes, right? We are trying to make it more codified, right? Because in law, you don't have an answer which is wrong and right. We have seen a judgment which is also into the favor of the employee, and the same law also goes against the employee, right? It also depends upon that what perspective you are going to bring. Similarly, it also depends that what kind of processes and policies that you lay into the organization, which is sacrosanct. It is not flexible on the whims and fancies of the people, right? So every time when you have to go through any kind of investigation as a CHRO, the processes and the policies is going to stand sacrosanct. You have to filter out that what is the process and policy of the organization which comes into this aspect.
Right.
Unless until you don't do that, and if you try to do such kind of conversations, such kind of grievances on the whims and fancies, it's not going to work. It is definitely going to fire back.
Right. Thank you for sharing that with us. Amitesh, you've also led a lot of mergers and acquisition integrations in the past, right? Now, beyond synergies and structures, there are also a lot of layoffs and hiring and structural changes that happen during a merger and integration process. What's the hardest human truth that companies ignore during M&As, and how did you balance that?
I think this is something no one has ever asked me, okay? Because whenever it came to merger and acquisition, it is always about how fast we can do it, okay? How well we can integrate it. What is the standardization of policy which needs to be done? But one thing that I always see, which is getting dropped into mergers and acquisition, or if two companies are trying to come together, is the psychological safeties of the employee.
Right.
Okay, that is something which is very much important, because when this merger and acquisitions are happening, somewhere on the top, some leadership team is sitting and they're talking and they're seeing the numbers and the growth journey that they are going to bring into next 1 year, 5 years, 4 years, the way you say. But the people who are going to be part of that merger and acquisition, they always think that the job security looms over their head, right? What kind of benefit? Because you are moving from one culture to another. Though the cultural integrations are not going to happen overnight, it takes time, right? You will take 6 months, 7 months, 8 months to bring both the culture, or maybe the company who's going to acquire their culture back to the company which is getting acquired, right? But one thing that actually hits the employee that I have seen very closely is the psychological safety. Everyone will come to you and ask, what's next? Is my job is going to be there? Are you going to cut down my job? Is there any change into the compensation structure? So it becomes very much important that any merger and acquisition should always have a strategy around psychological safety, and should also discuss about the employee's well-being, right? And it's something which becomes very much important over here also, that the job security is definitely the point that anyone will discuss about, but also that how you are going to enable employees to the new processes and policy, so that they become better and they contribute more to the organization.
Can you give us an example of how did you handle the transition that you've done in the past, and what were some of the initiatives that you?
I will not take name of the company, but I have done this into my previous organization, which I was part of it. And this is something that we discussed, that at that point in time, I was not leading the HR, but I was leading the operations.
Right.
But I would certainly like to say that we had this discussion that how we are going to manage the psychological safety of the employees. Because this organization, which was getting merged and acquired, this organization was there in India from past more than 2 decades, right? And there were employees who have spent more than 14, 15 years into that organization. So when you spend that much amount of time into any organization, your DNA becomes like that organization. You think, you believe, your belief system, your value system, that is something which becomes sacrosanct. It becomes very strong. But then all these things are going to change. So there were many aspects which came. So one part of our strategy was on psychological safety. And the second part, that how transparent we are going to put our communications to employee, that how we are moving. We are not going to hide anything. Okay, because in most of this kind of merger acquisition, you are having phase manner acquisition, right? So we made a plan that we are going to go back to employee, and with every change we keep them informed that how we are moving ahead, how we are progressing, what is going to change, what is not going to change. And that actually helped, because we were expecting that during the merger and acquisition the attritions will go high, and you won't believe it, it remained below the way we used to have into the earlier months, right? And that is where I thought that psychological safety plays a very important role in such kind of acquisitions.
Lovely to hear that. There's always been a huge push towards digital HR, towards HR tools and predictive analytics, right? Now, do you think are we over-indexing on digital tools while under-investing in the human balance and the human judgment and intuition part, or do you think there is a balance there? What's your take on that?
Look, data revolution came to India in 2012, 2014. I still remember when the MIS executives were given a new term of data scientist. Because at that point in time, we came to know that through internet, through consumer insights, we are having a lot amount of unstructured data, right? And into 2015, 2016, the data scientists came in place. They started giving structure to that data. And what other companies, the big companies which are doing it as of now, they are giving those data insights back to the business. And the businesses are buying those data insights at a very huge cost. But when you compare the data insight along with human-centric approach, sometimes I think it has become a fashion for organization to say that we are AI-enabled organization, right? I think somewhere most of the HR conversation that I have heard that they're saying that, hey, Amitesh, we are AI-enabled organization right now. But I fail to hear anyone saying that, hey, Amitesh, we have enabled our people much more better to handle AI, right? So that circling back is something which is not happening, because we are just thinking that how tech is going to grow further. But we are not thinking that how to make the organization future fit, how to enable an employee who will gain those skills to make AI more effective. Because at least into 1 decade, next decade that is going to come, I believe that AI will take leap, it will grow further. But definitely humans, and at least in the industry in which I am as of now, hospitality, they are irreplaceable. No one is going to replace them, because that is an experience that any of our guests will have and people will have. So you just think that you are walking into a shopping mart without any people, right? And you are having robots all around. You will not get that shopping experience, right? So that is where it is.
Well, as a CHRO, when I want to hear your take on this. For instance, there are two people. One has come to you as a fresher, and one has come for a managerial role. What are the qualities that you look for in both the candidates? Is it different for freshers and for managerial people, or there are things that are common that you look for in both the candidates?
Oh, look, when you asked me the first question that what are the first step or the unfiltered call that you are going to take if you have to lead a business, I will have many, but I took call that I'm going to remove the people who are having big numbers behind their back, right? But they are not so well in managing people. But one thing when you are talking about this, one of the decisions that I would like to take also, that I will hire people for mindset, skill, and the passion, not only for their experience and education. I've hired many people basis their experience in past, okay, and who have come and they have not made so significant contribution to the organization. But I've hired people with mindset that I can do this, and the people who are actually flexible, okay, that it's not something that if I'm an HR, I am bound to do only the job of HR, right? In my existing role, I'm not doing only job of HR. I'm also doing something which is beyond HR, right?
Yeah.
So I want people to come with that strong mindset, okay, and the skill. If the will is there, the skill is there, you will be able to, I can say, do anything into the organization, which is going to bring organization onto the higher grounds. But people who come with an experience and they are very much siloed that, okay, the 9 to 5 job, I'm going to do only this. I think days are gone. With an AI and the kind of technologies and the kind of work environment that we are going to have in future, this kind of people will not exist, or even if they are going to exist, they will be into an organization which will be bombarded to Stone Age.
Correct. Do you think smart work works, or do you think hard work works?
Both. I think it is very much important. At a given point in time, there is no shortcut to hard works, right? You have to work hard to learn the things. Once you are on that stature, on that stage where you are in a process of innovation, where you understand the business, you understand the gamut, then maybe you can work on smart. Because right now the smart work is having a different synonym. Okay, if you ask about generations, I think in my generation it was more about hard work. In the new generations, more about smart work. But I think people coin this word out in a very different manner. They think that it's more of a flexibility, it's more of a short hours of work, etc. But I think both make sense. Both hard work and smart work is needed into the organization.
Well, in your experience, what separates a CHRO who influences the CEO from one who simply just executes the CEO agenda and doesn't have any questions?
Oh, I think it is very much, it's not about influencing the CEO or implementing his agenda. What about partnering along with CEO, right? Because CEO is not a finance. I will not say that CEO is the person who will only see the number, because being a business head as a CEO, the numbers, the achievement, the targets are also important, and the people agenda is also important, right? And both should go hand in hand. You will not be able to work it into silo, right? It's not something that you are only chasing the number, but you do not have anything in place in hand where it comes to people, and on the other hand side, there is an attrition which is happening. So I will certainly say that it should be more of a partnership along with the CEO rather than influencing him. And it is also important that when you walk into a boardroom to have such kind of discussions with CEO, like let's go back and also take a step back and understand that what CEO does, right? CEO will understand, and the CFO will come back to you and say like, hey, look, they are more future oriented, right? They look into future and they come back and they will answer you. They will come back and say that in next 6 months, your cash flow is going to take a toll. Your CMO is going to come back to you and say that into next 7 months, the market is going to change, and this is the product which is not going to remain, I can say, viable. Similarly, other people will come, other business heads, they will come, or the business, I guess the leaders, they come and they share that what is going to happen in future. Being in HR, we are always being on the back seat. We will also talk about more reactive. Attrition happened, go and hire. If a cultural explodes or there's an explosion outside, you will do the GPS or people, I can say, survey that why it is happening, right? So HR is always being reactive, and that's why we talk into this language that you have to influence people, you have to influence business leader. Because HR is never be seen as the people who are much more proactive and progressive into approach, right? So to be that, you need to partner with CEO. You need to understand the business success. You also need to own the business failure. So it's not about influencing or executing, but it's more about partnering along with CEO and try to understand the perspective of the organization and also make him understand the perspective of people agenda.
Correct. Thanks, Amitesh, for that. Well, before we move on to the next segment, what is one hard truth about the future of work that most organizations are still in denial about?
Loyalty. I think
that.
most of the organization, they still think that your employers will remain loyal to you. Okay. We need to understand, when I joined the work, I was dealing with 4 generation of people. Right? Now we are having a different generation of people. The Gen Alpha is going to be at workforce into next decade, 1 decade, right? So now loyalty has taken a backseat. It's no more there, and I don't think so. After a decade in any of the organization, we will talk about loyalty. I'm also very much scared that how the good service award and the long service award functions will happen if the loyalty is not. But I'm sure the policy and processes will also take a shift. But yeah, that one word, if that comes to my mind, is the loyalty, because people will stay with you for your experience, not only for loyalty.
Perfect. Now we move on to the much fun segment of the conversation. I have a couple of questions prepared for a rapid fire round, and I only need one word answers. No explanations, nothing at all.
Okay.
All right. So one HR trend that you do not believe in.
Over romanticizing employee happiness.
One leadership behavior that frustrates you the most.
Saying the right things and rewarding opposite people.
Culture versus strategy. What actually wins?
Culture.
One word for today's workforce.
Intentional.
One HR practice that needs to die immediately.
Appraisal system.
Okay. Data or instinct? What do you trust more?
Data to inform, instinct to decide.
Remote work is empowerment or entitlement?
It's empowerment.
One thing employees expect too much of today.
Constant motivation rather than being disciplined.
One thing organizations still don't understand about employees.
Talent doesn't leave the organization, they leave there as managers.
Lastly, success metric for HR, is it engagement or performance?
Definitely performance.
Well, with that, we'll close this episode. Thank you so much, Mr. Amitesh.
Thank you so much.
And lovely insights from you.
Same here. Thank you so much. Have a good day ahead. Bye-bye.